decorum call be suspended, Madam President?
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. 3 quick points, Madam President. Number one, I rise first to thank the Bloomberg Foundation. I had made notes from which I was going to speak, but I lost them. So I'm going to kind of wing it here. But over the past couple of years, the Bloomberg Foundation has spent millions of dollars. I want to say the figure is $30 to $40 million to try to help really smart kids from low-income families access some of our finest colleges in the country. And America does have the best system of higher education in the world, by the way. We have the best quality colleges. And what the Bloomberg Foundation was focusing on, these were just really smart kids from low-income families who had great grades and great standardized test scores and great extracurriculars, but many of them just didn't know about the opportunities that were out there in the world for them. And the Bloomberg Foundation wasn't concentrating on race or gender or sexuality or a part of the country, any of those things. They were just looking to try to help really smart young women and young men in high school with great grades and great standardized test scores access some of the finest universities in the country. And they spent $40 million doing it, working with some other groups. Well, it didn't work out like they thought. They just didn't have as much success as they wanted to. But they learned from the experience. What they learned was, in order to reach these young people, you can't just text them. You can't just call them. You can't send them an email. In part because today, when all of us receive emails and text messages from people that we don't know, we automatically assume it's some kind of scam. So that's what Bloomberg and its contractors found, that people, including our young people, they're just very suspicious. And so they weren't able to reach that many kids. And those that they did reach, and by the way, the folks from Bloomberg contacting them would never meet the kids. They wanted to reach as many kids as they could, so they were doing it digitally. They just found out it wasn't that effective. But they also learned that the way to reach these kids is to see them in person and, in part, go through the kids' high schools, guidance counselors, and placement officers. So I'm hoping that Bloomberg is going to start again. I'm not saying that Bloomberg had no success. They had success, but it just wasn't as much success as we all wanted, but by God, they tried. And they deserve thanks. This wasn't any taxpayer money. It was the money of the Bloomberg Foundation. And they tried. And they learned a lot from it, and I wanted to thank them for trying, and I hope they won't give up, and I hope they'll use what they learned to try to reach these young people again. Number two, I want to repeat very briefly what I said last week. Catherine Foster is a member of our cloakroom staff. Catherine's not here. She's in the back doing her job. Today's her last day, and I wanted to thank her again for her service. And as I said last time, she's taken a very prestigious job in the private sector, and I wish her well, and I hope she makes bucket loads of money. To those who don't know, we have, by we I mean the Republicans and the Democrats, have what we call cloakroom staffs. These are people that work with us to make this place work. On any given day, the Democratic staff and cloakroom staff and the Republican cloakroom staff are the nicest and the smartest people in this building. And they just do an incredible job. And they work hard, and they have to be here at all kind of ungodly hours, and they have to put up with back sass from United States senators And it's a very hard job. And that's true on both the Democratic side and the Republican side. But anyway, Catherine is one of that group, and she's leaving, and we're sorry she's leaving, but we're happy that she's leaving because she's going to make more money than the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so we wish her well. But I also wanted to use this opportunity to thank our entire teams on both the Democratic and the House side for their incredible work. Number 3, the House passed a bill, Madam President, dealing with the sanctity of taxpayer records. In another life, I worked in state government. I worked for 16 or 17 years, I don't remember, and went by in a flash, as state treasurer, which was an elected position. But before that, I was in an appointed position, a position appointed by the governor. It was a political position called the Secretary of the Department of Revenue. And that was a fancy title for tax collector. I was the state's tax collector for 3.5 years until I left the position to go run for state treasurer. And one of the things I learned was the sanctity of people's income taxes. I mean, I'm sure there's some documents that are more private, maybe our medical records, but they're not that much more private to us and precious to us than our tax records. You know, and we had this at the Louisiana Department of Revenue, where I worked. We had a hard and fast rule, and every employee knew it, and they respected it. By God, if you leaked somebody's tax returns, we would chase you like you stole Thanksgiving, and we would punish you, and we would not only fire you, but we'd prosecute you if we had to. And so consequently, we had almost no leaks, none. I wish I could say that for the IRS. Through the years, they've had a bunch of leaks. I don't want to overstate it, but they have. And not that long ago, back in 2019, they had a leak. It actually came from a vendor that was working for the IRS. And by the way, the sanctity of those tax returns and the importance to protect them also applies to contractors for the tax agency. But anyway, one of the vendors for the Internal Revenue Service leaked 8,000 tax returns. 8,000. Not 80, not 800, 8,000 tax returns. And they gave these tax returns to a media organization. And the person who leaked it, he didn't do it because he was trying to show tax fraud. He did it to try to embarrass the people. A lot of them were really wealthy, and he wanted to embarrass them. It just out of the meanness of it in his heart. Some very famous people. I think Mr. Jeff Bezos was on the list. President Trump was on the list. But if you looked at this list was as long as King Kong's arm. You could stack this list here and paint that ceiling. 8,000. 8,000. And it embarrassed a lot of people. And it would have embarrassed you if your name was all over the internet with your personal information and your home address and your signature. It was just wrong. And it took years for the IRS to track this down. We kept pushing them and raising fresh hell and saying, this is not right. Well, I don't think they did it on their own. I think they got outside help, and they finally caught this person. And you know what his penalty was? He got 5 years. and they fined him $5,000. I just don't think that's enough of a deterrent. I don't. When you add up all the misery that this one meathead caused to 8,000 people, not who were cheating on their taxes, he was just trying to embarrass them, and that's just wrong. And so the House passed a bill the other day that basically says the penalty is going to be increased. It's no longer going to be a minimum of 5, it's going to be 10 years. But also, instead of a $5,000 fine, the maximum fine is going to be $250,000. And here's the thing: you can't. Let me put it another way. Every document, every tax return that you release is a different count. In other words, this meathead that released 8,000, under the new law, that would be 8,000 counts against him. And that's the way it ought to be. It shouldn't be, let's just all lump them together into one, and that's one count, and he pays $5,000, and he gets 5 years, but he's probably out in 2. That's just not right, folks. And what you allow is what will continue. And I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. And I don't know this meathead who did this. And in my heart, I don't hate him. But what he did was wrong. He just tried to embarrass, and did embarrass, 8,000 Americans who weren't doing anything wrong. They were paying their taxes, for God's sakes. It's just wrong. It makes me want to throw up. It triggers my gag reflex. So I hope we can pass the House bill. Like I say, I hadn't changed the word in the House bill. It's identical to what just passed the House. And I think, if I'm wrong on this, Madam President, I'll come back and correct the record. I think it passed the House unanimously. Did it pass the House unanimously? Do we know, Josh? There were a couple of votes against. This is Josh, who I work with. Okay, smart as a whip. Well, it wasn't unanimous. I stand corrected. Josh, my brain corrected me. But it was almost unanimous. And I would sure like to see this body do the same thing. And I just don't see this as a partisan issue. Now, I understand the reason I'm talking so long is I think that my good friend Senator Ron Wyden wants to object to this. Now, I hope he doesn't. I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I will buy him a pony if he doesn't object to this bill. A pony of his choice. That is not a bribe. I like Ron Wyden so much, I would buy him a pony of his choice anyway. But I will, if he won't object to this bill, I'll buy him a pony. Okay? Because this is a good piece of legislation. And I don't want to do this behind his back. So I don't see Ron here. But what I'm going to do, Madam President, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job. You can do whatever you want. But I'm going to make this motion, and I would ask if you would consider holding it until Senator Wyden has a chance to get here, because I don't want to do this behind his back. I see the parliamentarian is unhappy.
From Louisiana is recognizing that fact, yes.
I'll buy her a pony too.
That,
But ask for a quorum call.
You can do that. We're just hitting pause.
Okay, let me go to Plan B. What I'll do is I'm going to hit pause because I don't want to do this behind Ron's back. Let me hit pause, and I'll ask that we go into a quorum call, And when Ron gets here, I would ask to be recognized so I can assert my motion. And Ron can agree with my splendid bill, and then we'll go pick out a pony. So I suggest the absence.
Without objection, the senator will be recognized
suggest the
after.
absence of a quorum.
And without objection, the absence of a quorum is noted. The clerk will call the roll.
Okay?
Ms. Baldwin.